Buddy, it's Lisa from Been There, Got Out. Today we are getting together with Dennis Vetrano, who's a family lawyer in our neck of the woods, right in New York. He's a little bit upstate of us, and we were supposed to get together with him to do his podcast a couple of days ago, but his office sent us a picture of his driveway, which was covered with ice. And there he is. Okay, and he couldn't get on, so now should be fine to go. Let me just do the invite to join. Get it right. And thanks everybody for coming. Let's see if this works. It works.
Hello, how are you?
Hi. Good to see you. You got down your icy driveway?
I did. Isn't that crazy?
I know. It was funny how your office sent a picture like, Dennis can't get to the office and do the podcast. We're going to prove it and send you a photograph. Yeah. What is this about? You'll see what it's about. Somebody just asked that question. We're interviewing a divorce attorney. Okay, so and then before we start, Dennis, I was just telling people you're from New York too, and it just coincidentally, you and I went to the same college and we're a year apart, but of course didn't know each other.
Yeah, in some ways, parallel lives, right?
I know. I mean, I saw one of your videos months ago, posted it on our site, got in touch, and then very recently found out that not only are you like, one of your offices is right here where we are, but that we went to the same college, etc.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, all right. So thanks so much for coming on today. And I know you've been doing this for a while. You've been a divorce lawyer for a while, and it's kind of unusual, but you said you love your job. This is like crazy chaos. And I know my old divorce attorney was like, I am good at it, but it takes a toll. So why do you love this job?
You know, I think the main reason why I went into law in the first place was to help people. Like, you know, if you ask any of my relatives, they'll say ever since I was about 5 or 6 years old, everybody knew I wanted to be a lawyer, and I almost knew. So it was just for fighting for people. So then when I, you know, prosecuted child abuse and neglect, represented kids for years, gravitated towards this area of law because I felt like this was an area of law where people really could benefit from my help, right? The most important things in their life are hanging in the balance. And in a way, I appreciate taking on those things that are that important. You know, I appreciate that level of responsibility and trust. And I think when you can do that sort of work and do it well, the level of appreciation you get from your clients is just over the moon. And then you feel so good about yourself because you did the job the right way. So.
Yeah, well, we can definitely relate to that. You know, my background is as a high school English teacher, so dealing with teenagers. And, it was something I hadn't planned on getting involved in. And while declaring my major at SUNY Albany, they're like, you got to pick a minor. And I thought, I was a camp counselor and babysitter. I'll do education. And then boom, student teaching career. And it was one of the most rewarding careers ever, next to this career too. And I'm glad you noted how much responsibility you take with this. And it is over the top rewarding, you know, the gratitude that you get from clients when you really fight for them and advocate for them, and they can hopefully go on with their lives and get through what we call one of the most difficult periods anyone might ever have to go through, especially our clients in particular who are dealing with these crazy, you know, high conflict-y situations. And I say high conflict, there's a lot of debate about using that term because they say it's really one person that's causing the conflict, but from our knowledge, people still, you know, refer to these situations as high conflict without trying to blame both.
Right, right.
Yeah. So another thing we talked about the other day was being optimistic. And why do you think being optimistic is a problem when you're going into court and the divorce process?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the best way I would frame it is if you think thrusting yourself into litigation is going to get you what you're looking for, I'm sorry to say our system is just ill prepared to provide that. I have a lot of clients that come in and say, Dennis, you know what? Once the judge hears my story, here's my facts. I'm guaranteeing the judge is going to rule in my favor. Everything will be perfect. Everything will be resolved. And I have to lightly tell them, look, in 20 plus years of practice, thousands of cases, I still just don't know. I mean, you have a good sense in dealing with people's credibility. You prepare your client well, but you don't know how the judge is going to come down in these cases. And a lot of times you're going to end up beating your head against the wall, spending a lot of money with a judge that either doesn't have the time because of their caseload to really focus on your case and listen to the things they need to listen to, and or worse yet, judges who just don't care. They're like, I don't want to be rendering decisions, ruling on divorce cases. I ran for election so I could be a county court judge and rule on criminal defense cases. I don't want anything to do with divorce cases. And here you are thinking, but my kids are hanging in the balance, and my retirement and my house and everything. And this judge really doesn't care because I don't want to be bothered with these cases. And I don't necessarily blame the judges per se, but those are the circumstances you can end up in. A lot of money, a lot of aggravation, and not necessarily getting a successful result. Successful, again, in quotes, by whatever you consider that.
Right. It's all relative. Like coming out as unscathed as possible.
Right. Good word. Good word. As unpraised, as unscathed as possible, for sure.
Yeah. So it's almost like that I'll have my day in court is a bit of a myth, because I think we all go in thinking, even if maybe the judge won't believe me right away, at least I'll be able to speak. What have you found in that, in your experience?
And I think a lot of the times you go in as a client, you spend very little time speaking, to be quite frank. And I have to counsel clients, look, you may have 5, 10, 15 court appearances before the judge actually really has an opportunity to hear you speak directly to them. And the only way you're speaking directly to them in large part is through testimony. And then think of it like this. If you don't have a lawyer who's really good at conveying what your client wants to say directly to the judge in the way they want to deliver it, then there's a disconnect there too. So, you don't really proverbially get your day in court because you're not speaking frankly with the judge. You're not sitting at a table and having an honest conversation with the judge. It's just not happening.
I know. And, I've learned, I think I told you, I'm up to probably 90-ish court appearances in the past less than 5 years, post-judgment, not including divorce, in 2 states. And I would prepare, being a teacher, I'm like, I'm going to be ready. I have my speech. And I would go in, I'd be like, I within the first paragraph, judge would be like, no, let's get to it. And I'm like, oh, gee, jumping all over it. Because again, like you said, they don't have time. They want to hear like the commercial version, if that. They're not interested in the history. They're not interested in how hard, how hurt our family has been by the ex's behavior. It's just like, what do you need? Why do you deserve it? Get out.
Right. 5 is probably the maximum number of minutes you're ever able to convey information to the judge at any singular court appearance. 5 is like the absolute maximum. So I always go in, like, you'll have clients, and the clients proverbially dump like 20 bags of information onto your desk. And they say, I need to hear all this stuff next court appearance. I need them to know everything. And I say, but I'm only going to have X amount of minutes to convey the most important arguments to this judge. So you have to focus on what can you get out in a paragraph, 2 paragraphs, and that's all you're going to get. And even in those cases where they give you time, it's 5 minutes. It's 5. Yeah. And then 5 minutes to describe the most important aspects of your life that the judge needs to rule on today.
Right. And what you said about the 20 bags of stuff, like a lot of our clients too will be like, I've got all this stuff and I'm going to get it out. And it's this. And we're like, okay, one of our jobs as divorce coaches, especially high conflict divorce coaches, is to be like, you're giving your lawyer 20 bags of stuff. You are paying that lawyer to read through stuff that doesn't even matter. So our job, no offense, Dennis, is to save them money and not waste your time either, because you can't do anything with it. And there's only so many hours in the day. And you as a lawyer, not just judges, have like sometimes 1,000 caseloads we've heard at a time, but you have other clients. Right. So they're not hiring you to devote yourself to their case, even though I know as a client and in the situation, we feel like you need to help me. Like you need to be available all the time to calm me down. And now I've learned, no, it's not a lawyer. Otherwise I pay $100,000 or more. I need to spread that out into other resources like therapists, friends, family, DV advocates, divorce coaches.
Yeah. And it's funny because in our setup, what we try to do is I send letters to clients. Even at the initial consultation, I say, look, I don't want you coming into the office, sitting here for 2 hours, telling me about something while the clock is rolling, when you could do that in the privacy of your own home, when you could do that with your divorce coach, when you could do that with your support system. So what we do is we send a letter and say, here are the things I need. Put these things together. Do that outside the office. And quite frankly, I would much prefer be one of the important cogs in the wheel that delivers you through the process, okay? I don't want to be necessarily your sounding board for everything, nor am I necessarily qualified to do that. What I want to be is your legal advisor. I think the most important role a divorce lawyer can play is tell you what the law is, tell you what you're entitled to, tell you what the judges are likely to do in your particular circumstances with the facts applied to the law, and all the little legwork and or the phone calls back and forth, or the pick up at 4 or pick up at 4:15, or are they going to do football or are they going to do volleyball? Those are not things you need to pay me $4.95 an hour for. I'm sorry. It's wasteful to you. And quite frankly, as I train my lawyers here, do lawyer work. Don't do administrative work that clients are going to pay you legal rates for. Either have them do that outside, work with the divorce coach, work with your support system, work with your counselor, do that outside the office. And when you need me for the legal advice, the important, all of the years I spent training and learning how to do this area of law really well, that's where my value is. Use that. Use that. And that's the X amount of dollars an hour.
Right. And that's so important too, because I know so many of our clients freak out because they're like, my lawyer hasn't returned my phone calls. But a lot of times it's not about a legal thing. It's about an emotional issue. Yep. And so one of the things that Chris and I offer to our clients is we have like free check-ins where we're like, you're freaking out. Don't spend $75 to $95 sending that email to your attorney about everything where he or she is going to read it, file it, answer it. Like that takes time. You guys charge by what, the 10th of an hour or something?
Yeah.
So we said, send it to us and we'll probably say, you don't need to send this to your lawyer. And we'll talk you off the ledge if it takes a few minutes and then you're done. And then you can go on with your day and you're not waiting for someone who doesn't have the time and you're not the priority. This issue is not a priority.
And even if you see the value I think divorce coaches really have, especially if you've been through the process, is you know what it's like to be in it. You have direct knowledge and experience to be in it. Even me as the divorce lawyer, I'm a divorce lawyer, but I haven't been in it myself.
You're lucky.
Going through the process.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to determine what bag each thing needs to go in, proverbial bag. So this is the bag that you discuss with your counselor. This is the bag that we work through together to get organized. And you may say, hey, okay, here's some legal questions you can answer. But you don't email, lawyer looks at it, email response back, another email for one question. Wait till you have it, and you may say, hey, this isn't an emergency. Your lawyer doesn't need to hear about this right now. But if you have that question, you need it answered. So then when you get those little non-emergency questions, couple 10 of them together, couple 15 of them together. Schedule a 10-minute conversation with your lawyer and talk about all 10 of them. Not one at a time, because then you said a 10th, a 10th, a 10th, a 10th, 10. And I tell clients, keep those tenths down to like a 15-minute phone conversation, and then you'll get an hour's worth of emails back and forth in 0.25.
Yeah. I hope everybody heard that.
Right. And you're
call your divorce coach instead.
Honestly, that's where the divorce coaches come in. I think you're there to help with that. Determine, hey, talk off the ledge. What bags do these things go in? Having been through the process, you know what bag each thing goes in. This is the counselor bag. This is the support system at home bag. This is the work with me to get organized as a divorce coach bag. And these are the questions you need for your legal advisor.
Right. And this is all the stuff that nobody really is going to pay attention to anyway. So let's just put that over there. That's in the trash bag.
Right.
No offense to, like we always say, like not to minimize your experience at all, but this is a different arena and they don't care about that. So let's just put that over to the side. Now, as you were talking, it made me think about something that comes up a lot with our people and in this community. People say, I need a lawyer that really knows a lot about narcissism. What do you think about that? Do you think lawyers need to know, based on your, what you're hired to do, do you need to know about personality disorders?
Well, let's put it this way. Like, so you know how lawyers are, right? We analyze things because our job really is to translate all the information you have into a language that is going to resonate with the judge. So once you say anything that's a clinical diagnosis, now my wheels start turning. Okay, if I'm going to bring that word up, now an expert, now testimony, now certified to make determinations on what they are. So for me, I'm loath to do forensic evaluations because I think, in large part, I think they're next to worthless. Most of the ones I've seen, not all of them, most of the ones I've seen. So delving into that particular realm, I like to stay out of that because I think they're worthless and they're really expensive. What I like to focus on is, what are the facts that formulate that? Why do you think that person is X? Why do you think is Y? Forget about if you're going to call it a narcissist or you're going to call it, borderline personality disorder, you're going to call it domestic abuser. Forget about what you're going to call it. What are the behaviors? Because at the end of the day, that's what you need to adjust for. And that's what you're going to be putting before that judge. Unless you think you're going to come in and bring in an expert to testify to whatever their diagnosis is, which in large part, again, I think is expensive and not really very valuable. You've got to look at the factual basis that formulates your opinion in your head as to what type of person am I dealing with. And I think you're going to find there's going to be a lot of crossover. Your domestic abuser is going to be exhibiting narcissistic behaviors and possibly some mental health issues. There's going to be so much crossover. Rather than trying to sort out that thicket with specific diagnoses, know what the factual basis are for those behaviors and be prepared to put that before the judge and adjust your behavior accordingly and work with your counselor to be able to combat those things.
Yeah, and now I'm so glad you said it, because that's exactly what we say to people is you're never going to say that N word in court because nobody's going to listen to you and it just nothing. But you have to focus on patterns of behavior over time. And those patterns have to connect to your goal with the case. If it's a custody case, what are the patterns of behavior over time and how it's going to affect your children, not how it affects you. The words coercive control, I'm in Connecticut, like in New York right now too, but people say, well, Connecticut, there's only 3 states that have laws on coercive control. A lot of people in Connecticut still don't know what coercive control is, but it's the same thing. Patterns of behavior over time. We don't need to give it a label. If you can show through your evidence, or at least with me, that I've been able to do, and that's why I've been successful so far, except in finally getting my paycheck that's owed from me, from my ex. But, showing those patterns of behavior over time will give you credibility in court and make your case stronger. You don't need the label, right?
You said it all. It's like,
wow, and I'm not even an attorney.
You said it all. I mean, I think, again, think of it like this. Say you're the judge and you have to make a determination on somebody else's family. Somebody else's kids and 2 parties come before you. You're the judge. You've never met either of these people before. You don't know the child at all. Somebody steps up and says, this other person's a narcissist and they have this diagnosis and they have that disorder. What does that mean to me as the judge?
Right.
But if you say, refuses to communicate about the children, wants to constantly text me and control the decisions that I make. I mean, factual bases for these diagnoses. Now that's going to resonate. Right.
But not here's 25,000 emails showing how this person is trying to control me.
Right.
Summarize, right? Summarize.
Right.
But have them ready just in case.
Remember, you're going to have before that judge. So if you've got an emergency application, you're going before that judge, how much time are you really going to have their ear?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so you started talking a little bit about experts and why you think forensics are, not really helpful. And I know the other day we also talked about the catastrophic waste of money.
Yeah.
What other things, or are there, what else are catastrophic wastes of money?
Well, I think I think definitely the forensics are. I mean, I think so in the legal profession, what we want to do, so let's be, most lawyers, black and white. It's good guy, it's bad guy. It's yes, it's no. It's with mom, with dad. Because that makes, for any human being, that makes your decision easy, right? If you know, here's bad guy over here and here's good guy, okay, bad guy doesn't get anything, good guy gets everything, right? Job's easy. So what they want, I think, in large part with the forensics, the legal profession in general, or lawyers in general, and I think judges in general, and we're all guilty of it to a certain degree, is they want somebody to tip the scales. Because they want to actually take the time to navigate through all of the facts in the case and actually make the determination based on the facts and the information they have before them. And a lot of times with these evaluations, one person's going to come in and give a lot of information that's not vetted. Nobody knows what's true and what's not true. Nobody knows what you can prove, what's hearsay, what should be in his evidence or not. And then they're going to make a determination or make a recommendation based on that. There's nothing that could possibly be more skewed. And I think at the end of the day, I think a lot of not trying to navigate through the process cost effectively and amicably as much as you can. Look, you have these cases where the clients are just, or rather the person you're dealing with, you're just never going to get them to want to work with you. It's not going to be that amicable mediation sort of situation. It's just never going to be that. And I always suggest in a case like that, you know, forgive the expression, but I say smash them into the ground really early. I mean, I know that sounds terrible.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. We say it a different way, but yeah.
Somebody who's abusive and who's, you know, forgive the expression, but narcissistic is used to pushing you around. They're used to controlling you. They're used to getting their way. And the more you acquiesce, the more you give in, the more they're going to do it. So gray rocking, yeah, I get it. That can be helpful at times. But I think, you know, parallel parenting, yes, that's another alternative as well. But in dealing with a narcissist in a contentious divorce, especially when you have kids, sometimes you need to just put your foot down right out of the gate and say, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I don't have to fall into your BS. I don't have to respond to your abusive texts. I'm not falling in. So again, I think you can try to be amicable and mediated as much as you can so you can avoid the expensive litigation and back and forth with the lawyers. I think to the extent that you can't do that, you try to avoid the expensive things you don't need, which is the multiple emails to lawyers about little stuff where your divorce coaches and your support system and your counselor could help you with. And just trying to be efficient with the process as much as you can. I think, you know, last time we spoke, there was a picture of a table with 4 legs on it.
Yep.
You know, and to build that table, you need 4 legs. You need 4 pieces for that to stand strong. One of those pieces in this process is your divorce lawyer, in my opinion. But your support system, your divorce coach, your counselor, equally, if not more important. Yes, I love that. I really do.
That's all Chris. He gets the credit for that, the team.
Chris. Yeah. So, you know, I think don't spend the money on the wasteful things. Try to utilize your other resources. Mediate and be amicable if you can. And God forbid, try not to have your lawyer go back and forth with stupid little stuff. Like I say with the custody and visitation, more so and more so. Major issues with custody, yes, I'm there to give you a framework. I'm there to give you what I know works. I'm there to, you know, try to avoid the pitfalls moving forward, especially considering the person you're dealing with on the other side. But when we're talking about whether or not pick up and drop off on Thursday night is 3:15 or 3:30, you don't need me to, you email me, I email the other lawyer emails their client emails them back, they email me back, I email to you, you email back. Over 15 minutes?
I know.
Like, and listen, I'm not, don't think for one single second I'm, you know, giving the clients or people in it a hard time. I understand how difficult it is to be going through the process, and you're looking at that lawyer like you're one rock, you're one support system.
Right.
But it doesn't need to be just me. It doesn't need to be just me. And in fact, it's more cost effective if it's not just me. And
right.
More, maybe better suited if it's not just me. because you have somebody like a divorce coach who's been through the process before. You have a counselor who's qualified to help you and help you deal with, you know, person on the other side, whatever their issues are.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, so we're not done yet. So I want to talk about the attorney for the child, sometimes called a guardian ad litem. And in your experience, you said they're notorious for something that I know a lot of our community would be like, yes. What are they notorious for? You said you had read an article or something, and in your own experience.
Yeah, I read an article a while ago, and it's funny because you say this to people in my profession and their eyes glaze over, like they have no idea that this phenomenon exists. What the attorneys for children are notorious for is, remember good guy, bad guy, right? Lawyers, attorneys for children want to do the same thing. So what they'll do is, in a lot of these cases, they tend on average, and this study bore it out, they tend on average to the first person they meet with, whatever information they're given, they take that as true, and then from that point forward, they only try to gather information in support of their original position or their original outlook or the original set of facts they were provided, not even considering that maybe those original facts they were provided are not true or misleading. So, give an example. I'm attorney for children. I say, hey, I need to meet with my client, you know, Sally Smith and Johnny Jones. Hey, mom, can I come by the house and meet with the kids, with you? Okay, fantastic. Come by. Mom says everything's great. You know, dad's the terrible dad. You know, you really don't want, he's a criminal, he's a drug addict, he's all these other things, right? Meet with the kids, and the kids seem to say, I'm happy with mom, I love mom, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. As you would expect kids to say when you meet with them in the environment with that one parent. Now, dad calls, or his lawyer calls and says, hey, I've got some information about the kid's school or about, you know, extracurricular, and I want to just give you some background information about my relationship with the kids and my view of the world. I don't want to talk to you. Talk to your lawyer.
Yes, that is.
My kids want to be with mom. Well, here's some information about the, you know, I coach their soccer team, I coach cheerleading and basketball, and we do things together. No, you keep that. I don't want to see that. And it's a very easily reversed too. But as an attorney for children, you're duty bound to gather information, at least in New York State, from both parents, from all sources that you believe would be relevant for you to effectively represent your clients. So they take that position, don't change it, and only accept information that supports that position. And that leads to some of the most skewed results in cases. And I've had it happen over and over and over and over again, not with me. Because I know that when I meet with the kids with dad, all things being equal, two good parents, right? Let's be 50-50 case, two good parents. Not bad guy, good guy. You're going to meet with them with dad. They're going to tend to say, if dad is engaged with them and spends time with them and does things with them, are going to tend to say, yeah, dad's a pretty good guy. We like being with dad. And when you meet with mom, same situation, same answer. So if you had taken the time to meet with them at dad's, then maybe your opinion about what's in the best interest of your client softens somewhat when you accept information from both sides. And evaluators are notorious, and social workers are notorious for this as well. Same exact phenomenon. And why do we do that? It's human nature. Because we don't want that inner angst of, oh my God, this is a really good mom and a really good dad. I don't know what's best for my client. Really, both parents involved. Really, if they stayed together, maybe. But they're splitting, and it's happening, and now I've got to represent what I think is best on behalf of my clients. And I've got that's stressful. But if you got bad guy, good guy, easy. It was bad guy over there. Don't worry about bad guy. We'll just leave it with good guy. And when I say guy, I mean guy or gal.
Right.
So, interesting phenomenon.
Yeah, and as you're talking, I'm thinking it's not even just in that field. Like I'm a state certified domestic violence advocate, and when someone goes to a domestic violence center and has an issue, if their partner goes, if whoever's second gets turned away, no matter what evidence, it's whoever got there first. So there's a lot of people in the community who love to play the victim and know how to use those resources. You always have to be a little bit careful.
Yep. And I've had those kids. Listen, I've had some pretty egregious, as I'm sure you've had, pretty egregious, severe domestic violence, mental, emotional, physical. And I've also had those cases where it's just complete trumped up garbage.
I know.
And it's so hard to distinguish the two, but you've got to take the time to really analyze it.
There it is. It's the time to analyze. And that's what a lot of people don't do. They don't spend the time.
Yeah. Because victims and victims of false allegations both deserve your time. They both deserve you really taking a close look at these issues. You got people's lives hanging in the balance. And I say to lawyers and judges too, if you don't want to accept the responsibility that comes along with doing this sort of work, get out. You can handle traffic tickets. You can do property disputes. You don't have to be involved in a situation where you're dealing with kids and retirement plans and houses and whether people eat and whether people are safe. You don't have to deal with that area of law. Do something else. There's plenty of other areas of law you can get into. You're either cut out for this area or you're not.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting, too, that a lot of family law judges have no background in family law. And that's always shocking to our clients, too. They're like, oh, our judge has no background. I'm like, from what I've read, like most of them don't. And they change all the time.
Yeah.
So just approach this person like a human being. I mean, you got to remember who's in charge, right, and be deferential, but assume that they don't know anything about all those labels. Right. Like I've even said, don't say coercive control yet. Right. Like don't go in there like you, the client, are the authority of everybody and you're going to show them because then that's a turnoff, right? That doesn't work.
Right.
And I've learned that along the way too. Like I got to shut up a little bit.
Well, you want to lead. The judge wants to feel like they're powerful, right?
Right.
So you want to give them the information, give them the bread trail, right? Give them a trail and bread to lead to where you want them to go. Here, well,
right.
This happened, judge, this happened, judge, that happened, judge, that happened, judge. Oh, this is coercive.
Right. And we tell our clients too, which is, yeah, we tell our clients too, like, let them form their own conclusions. That's very hard for me. I'm like, but I just want to tell you what it is, because what if you don't see it? But that's offensive. That's offensive to judge. They're like, I got here for a reason. Like, I could figure it out. You don't need to shake your head because they're lying, which is what I can't help doing all the time. I know it's so bad, but like you got to calm yourself down and let them take the evidence, like you said, and they will know, they'll know what it is and trust in that. But so hard.
I mean, and you've been through the process, so I think
I'm still in the process.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm constantly trying to look at the judge's facial expressions and trying to focus on the witness, but you're also trying to see, what does the judge look like? Is the judge back in his chair, like, with his eyes closing, leaning back like this, not paying attention? And that happens even midstream of trials. Or are they at attention? They really want to hear this. Or are they looking at the person on the stand saying, what is this? Because I've had judges say, I literally in the midstream of a hearing have a judge look at the witness and go, and then I'm in the right direction. I
was fortunate enough during my divorce to have that exact thing happen, and I was like, it was wonderful. Yeah. Okay. So let's see. How can a client be like a great client for you? Because I don't know if you do this, but I know talking to some lawyers, and I had a lovely divorce attorney who became my best friend for a year. Sometimes lawyers say, well, if I like the client, I don't charge him for everything. Not that whatever you do is you charge all the time, but some people you just like more. How can, you think also the clients that you like more, you'll really put a little more attention into. So how can someone be a great client for you?
I'm glad you added that because I'll say, look, these are difficult situations, right? This is a difficult area of law to be in. So on occasion, I will have a client call screaming and yelling about the situation. This shouldn't have happened. Why did this happen? I can't believe you, blah, blah. 9 times out of 10, they call back 15 minutes later and say, I'm sorry. I lost my temper. I know it's not you. We're just doing the best we can, blah, blah, blah. I think, remember that lawyers are human beings too. And we function on emotion just like anybody else does. So like, if you have that waitress or waiter at your restaurant and they're really pleasant and really polite and really nice, and then you're really pleasant and polite back, that's what's gonna create, maybe you get a discount on maybe that extra coupon they're gonna find for you. So you want to just be nice. I mean, if you know your lawyer's killing themselves to do a good job for you, just be nice to them. Sometimes it's as simple as just saying, hey, I know it didn't necessarily go like we thought, or it went great, and thank you. And even in these cases where, that sort of motivation for a lawyer goes a long way. I mean, I do this area of law because I care about helping people. And even if I fundamentally dislike the client, I still give them everything I have. But you just like, even subconsciously, if that client you really want to fight for, you just like, even if you're not trying, just that little extra. And I think that can go a long, long way. And I think the other thing I'll say to that is just listen to me, please. I mean, the ultimate decision is made by you as the client. I'm going to give you the legal advice. But if I give you legal advice that says, hey, there's an order of protection in place, I know it's just a no illegal contact, which means you can't like commit a crime against the person, but I don't think you should be communicating with them directly right now. Do it through an intermediary, do it through email, please, or keep a record of things. Or, when I say don't violate the order of protection, please just listen to me, or whatever. Listen to my advice, believe me, because everything I do is to try to get the best possible result at the lowest possible cost. And listening to your lawyer and just being polite and nice will go a long, long, long way.
Oh, I'm so glad I asked that. Okay, and then this is like kind of the big question that I was going to ask earlier, but I thought, let's just see. Is there anything you can think of to fix this broken system? We all know it's broken. Or like sort of take charge of your own case, like to help make the pain less.
I had a judge, so I'll give you a story. We had a judge many years ago that there was an order in a case that needed to be followed. It wasn't being followed. We represented one of the parties who was owed a substantial sum of money, and we went in with our violation like we typically do, everything laid out, everything meticulously prepared to the nth degree. We wait for a court appearance. We finally get the court appearance. And the judge looks up at my lawyer, looks at the papers, and goes, why is this my problem?
Oh.
That is the starting point of the problem. You have a system where there are judges who don't necessarily know this area of law well, and they don't want to be taught or learn, and or they're so overwhelmed with their caseload, and or at a level of apathy where they just don't care about, they don't understand the gravity of what they're doing.
We call it compassion fatigue. Have you heard that term, compassion fatigue?
No, but I love that. I love that phrase. And I think that's part of it. And I think most of our judges they really do care about the people they preside over. They really do care about their community. I had a judge who was running for election, I want to say about a year ago, and we were talking about the election. He said, Dennis, he says, I am the luckiest guy on the planet. He says, I have the best job in the world. He says, I love serving my community. I love going to work every day. And that is a guy who we need on the bench, But you got to be in it for the right reasons. You got to be in it because you love it. And I know it's a stressful area of law, but the starting point of the judges, and if you hadn't, so think of it like this: we have some judges who used to be really good divorce lawyers. They tend to be very good at handling their cases. They rein it in when they need to, and they don't put up with any bullshit. They just don't. They set the confines, but they know what the requirements are. They know the information they need to evaluate the case. They're going to take the time to take a look at it. They expect the lawyers to do their job, and they expect the client to be respectful and try to work as best they can through the process. But I think if we had that, you could be more efficient. I think you'd get better results. They'd have more time to look things over. And really, I think the judges are the starting point. And hopefully if you could get lawyers that say, hey, like for me, because of what we do in our reputation, we're already so busy. I don't need to shake people down for cases. I just don't. We've always been inundated. We always will be inundated with prospective new clients. So I think even if I was that type of person, which I'm not, we don't really need to like market for that. I want to help people. So if you get the right people involved in these systems, and then right people at the top, right people at the lawyers, and get your team together. Lawyers don't need to handle all this stuff. Judges don't need to rule on all of these things. They just don't. You can either do it amicably, fine, all the legwork outside the office and being prepared and getting an organized divorce coaches, your support system, family, friends, counselor, all of these pieces. So I think it's just, it's relatively new in the process, because I've been handling divorce cases for 20 plus years, where you have all those other pieces that we've needed all along. Now you just got to reach out to them and utilize their resources.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that too, because a lot of times people feel like, I'm so helpless, I have to go to court. And I'm like, you're not helpless. You're not helpless. You can't control the judge's mood on that day.
Yes.
But there's so much you can do to prepare.
Yeah.
You know, because the story you told, I'm sure that doesn't happen most of the time. Right? That one stood out, hopefully, because it was so nightmarish.
That one stood out, but I think, you know, you said compassion exhausted.
Yeah, compassion fatigue.
Compassion fatigued. I think that's what happens to a lot of judges who are ruling on divorce cases, because they see people fighting over silly stuff, and they just and sometimes like that becomes the white noise, right? The white noise of the cases that they see. And within that white noise, you're going to pick out those handful of really important cases that have super important issues that you need to focus on. And they don't have the time or the knowledge or the expertise to really pinpoint those cases and say, this is the one I really need to listen to. This is the one I really need to take the time with. And, you know, but I think that's why, you know, again, I think having more experience, more knowledgeable in this area, you know, and I work in Westchester too, so they have a specific matrimonial part that has a very, very different specific set of rules. And I think that actually functions better than the average divorce case for sure. And they have some judges there who are really knowledgeable. So a couple will remain nameless, but a couple come to mind as, you know, and there are a couple locally too, just very knowledgeable divorce lawyers to begin with. And then then they were family court judge, now they're divorce judge. So they went a whole host of trainings and experience and trial practice and practice as a lawyer. And, you know, they can, that fitting within the Westchester system, I think does help. So I think we can craft a system that works better to more.
Dennis, you've made me have some hope, because part of my case is in the Westchester court.
Oh, okay, good. Good.
It's almost done, hopefully, but it's in the Westchester court.
I've had some good experiences there. I think the general system that they've come up with, the matrimonial part system, I think works more efficiently and effectively than the average system. There's no question in my mind about that. And I think they have some professionals down there. And even the local bar down there is actually, I have a number of friends and colleagues down there. All
right. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
But speaking of that, is there anything else you want to add, and how can people find you, even though I know you're inundated with cases?
Well, they can always check out the website, Dr. Vetrano Law. Really what I want to try to do with people is, I'm not on these things to try to drum up cases. I really just want to try to educate people as much as I can. So check the @DRV Law, my TikTok. There's a lot of great instructional videos there. Also, I'm on Instagram as well. I want to say that's @DRV Law as well. So
I think it is.
Yeah, thank you. Reels. And I also have a Divorce Stories podcast, which I'm interviewing some really interesting, amazing guests day after day. So, you know. Really?
Who are you interviewing next Tuesday?
I wonder.
Take a guess, everyone. I told, before you got on, I told them how we were supposed to be on this week, but we got that picture of your icy driveway, so we're going on next Tuesday.
You got a picture of an icy driveway instead.
Yeah. That's right. I'll have to wait till next week.
So check out videos, and if you're going to go to the website, drvetranolow.com, there's a lot of great blog posts there. So one of the blog posts, for example, is a post-divorce checklist, which I thought was good. So stuff like, you know, updating your will, like updating your license, like those blog posts there are really useful. So whatever stage you're at, take advantage of the website, take a look at the videos. Hopefully it'll help you through the process, and certainly create a support. If you're about to be in it and you're in it, create a support system. Get a coach, get a counselor, you know, friends, family you can count on, and listen, get it all put together. Even if you don't need it, you'll be happy you set it up with and have the peace of mind of, hey, if I needed it, I had it there at my disposal, but everything worked out amicably, and that's great. But if it doesn't, you'll have your support system set up, and it'll make all the difference.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much, Dennis.
Thank you so much.
All right. See you soon. See you next week.
See you again. Take care.
Okay. Bye.